The question I wanted to ask for my project was the Boston Massacre really a massacre? The Boston Massacre was an incident that occurred on the night of March 5th, 1770 between Patriot protesters and British troops. British troops fired on the protesters, killing 5 and injuring 6 more. Patriots around the states used this incident as propaganda against the British and helped lead to the American Revolution. Ironically, after the incident, John Adams, who would later become the second president of the United States, defended the British in court. He argued that the soldiers acted in self-defense. In the end, 6 of the soldiers were acquitted, while 2 were found guilty of manslaughter and were sentenced to branding of the hand. The truth of what really happened that night is still unknown. Many perspectives of the shooting were told, but the descriptions of what happened vary greatly. The first description of the shooting comes from the Committee of the Town of Boston. This was written by patriots that hated the British, including John Hancock and Sam Adams. They say the protesters were very peaceful and that Captain Preston ordered his men to fire on the crowd. The picture on the screen you see here is an engraving made by Paul Revere called The Bloody Massacre, which clearly shows British troops firing on a defenseless crowd. The second description is testimony given by William Tent. He was neither a loyalist or a patriot, so his description is not as biased as others. He says protesters were taunting the soldiers, yelling fire. Next he heard a musket go off, and a couple seconds later he heard the word fire again, but he doesn't know which side yell it. Then he says the soldiers instantly started to fire. The last description comes from Captain Preston, the man commanding the soldiers that opened fire. His account states that about 100 people were protesting in front of the troops. He says many were throwing snowballs and some had clubs and other weapons. They were yelling fire, and one of his men was struck with a club, and he fired his musket. After that, the rest of the men started firing. Preston swore that he never gave the order to fire, but his men said they heard the word fire and assumed it was him. In my opinion, I do not believe the Boston Massacre was truly a massacre. I think the British troops acted in self-defense. They were greatly outnumbered and scared for their lives. With all the protesters yelling fire, there was probably a lot of confusion, and when they heard the musket go off and the word fire, they did what they were trained to do.